Welcome, everybody, to the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle podcast, now partnered with Odyssey. I am Brian Rennick. I am joined by the birthday boy himself, Zain Nakvi. As you can see, our beautifully bald brother, Al Sacco, is not with us today. He has some family obligations, and so Zain and I are going to hold it down and talk about this Week 6 matchup against the Falcons. But first, and most importantly, Zain, how was your birthday yesterday?
Fantastic. So I'm not a big "Hey, it's my birthday" guy, but I did tell Jamie Foxx, who was kicked out of Cardi B's birthday party, that he could enter my birthday party anytime, right? So, but it was fantastic. You ever had a tomahawk steak before?
I have not.
So I ordered one. There's a steakhouse here, as we go on the side to our show. There's a steakhouse here on the peninsula, in the Bay Area, and I went there last night with my family, and I ordered the tomahawk steak. And it was comically large. Like my wife ordered filet mignon. Like my wife's steak looked like a little baby compared to this thing.
Right.
Like literally, this was several steaks, and I was like passing out meat to like everybody at the table and stuff, right? And I still have some left over. So guess who's eating steak tonight? This guy.
That guy. That steak is a 2-day steak.
It's at least a 2-day steak. It's like a 4-person 2-day steak. It was unreal. So yes. Definitely recommend it. Aria Steakhouse in Palo Alto is where I went. So thanks for the give me a free tomahawk on the house, Aria.
Let's go.
Give me some business here. So
yeah, go ahead and sponsor this 49ers Web Zone No Huddle podcast. We're down.
Exactly.
Free steak for life. Let's go. So Zain, our 49ers are at the Greenbrier in West Virginia. Stayed on the East Coast. This is what, the fifth season in a row that they have stayed. Yeah, that they have stayed out east. It seems to have done very well for them. And so they are traveling to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons this Sunday, 10 a.m. kickoff. But we got to talk about the big story, or the storylines, if you will, coming out of the Greenbrier, and that is injuries. And it seems like it's something that we have to talk about almost every week. In almost every week, every season. I don't know, we said it last episode. I'm not sure if Levi Stadium is built on some sort of cursed ground, or if the gods of Candlestick Point are, getting revenge against the team for leaving the city. But man, it is the injury report is long, and it has some pretty important names on it, namely, along the defensive line, Nick Bosa, who still hasn't practiced as of today. We are recording this Thursday, October 13th. He did not practice today. The good news was Samson Ebukam did. Eric Armstead didn't travel with the team. Javon Kinlaw also did not practice. And so we are looking at a fairly thin defensive line heading into a game against a team that runs the ball really, really well. So what do you think we have to look for when it comes to these defensive line injuries?
So even with Ebukam practicing today with the Achilles, I think that he may be on a pitch count, especially with that type of injury and recovery. It could significantly get worse, especially on turf. And I think that for the other guys, Armstead's on IR. We know he's not going to play, but
yeah,
with Bosa and Kinlaw, with them, I think there's some hesitancy to even have them like practice or play on turf at all, given the team's track record on that surface. So maybe I would say, we were kind of talking about this before the show, like those guys coming back, I would probably predict for them to come back, number one, in a home game, because we're playing on grass, obviously, right? And probably after the bye, so they have an extra week to heal up. Because I believe you said that off the air, that they're playing the Chargers the first week after the bye here in Santa Clara. So I would expect them to come back at that point and have a full defensive line. So that means that the next, essentially, 2 games, plus the bye, obviously, you're playing with the patchwork defensive line.
3 games before the bye. You've got Atlanta. They play Kansas City at home, and then they travel to Levi South and face those LA Rams one more time before the bye.
Yeah, I was talking about after this week.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. Yeah.
We know they're not playing this week, right? So
yes.
Yeah. So I think that when it comes to that, DeMeco Ryan's gonna have to find new ways to bring pressure. Like, he doesn't blitz a lot. They did blitz quite a bit more against Carolina, and I don't know if that was a precursor of things to come from him. knowing that he has a defensive line that's kind of patchwork, but they're not going to be able to get the same pressure on the quarterback that they have been when obviously the best pass rusher in the game, in my opinion, him and Micah Parsons is not on the field, right? When Nick Bosa is not on the field, it changes everything.
Oh,
so
100%.
That to me is going to be like, well, what's D'Amico Ryan's counter? Because Atlanta, they do run the ball well. They're not a very good pass blocking offensive line. So there is that. But how is defense going to generate pressure? And what are they going to do at corner opposite Mooney? Because they have not made a decision on that. There's been no announcement on who's going to play and what's going to happen over there. So I don't know if it's a game time decision over there, or, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think their options are over there?
I feel like when things like this happen, right, where you know that a player isn't going to play going in, like after Sunday's game, right? Mosley was injured, so obviously we knew someone is going to have to start opposite that. It feels like every time that has happened, we don't find out that answer until game time. And I think that's just kind of football coach gaming, right? Just making the other team kind of plan for whatever, you know. And we were talking off air, the candidates to replace Mosley, you know, really you're looking at, I don't think Lenoir is going to be one of the options. I think they would probably prefer to keep him in that nickel or that slot corner role, just because he's been incredibly successful thus far this season at that. And you don't want to weaken two positions by moving somebody, you know, from where they're playing well into a position where they may not be playing well. And I don't know if you remember, Zane, but last season, right, Diamador Lenoir was very much like Sam Womack, kind of the talk of camp, right? This rookie corner, fifth round pick out of Oregon, right? That was Lenoir last season. Came on like gangbusters in the preseason. All they could talk about was how good he was. And after getting burned for a long touchdown against the Eagles in week 2, we almost didn't hear from Lenoir again that season. And it just feels like history is repeating itself a little bit with Womack. But I think part of it is that Lenoir is not, I mean, he's not a bad athlete at the position. I think he runs in the high 4.4s, but I don't know that he has the athleticism to stick outside, right? Which is why I think they moved him inside. And he's a solid tackler, which is par for the course at that nickel position for the 49ers. And he doesn't necessarily get exposed for his lack of top end speed, right? Whereas Womack played outside at Toledo. That's where he made his name. That's where he became one of the better coverage players in the nation at Toledo. And Womack runs in the high 4.3s. And so I think personally, I think Womack might get the first crack at it, mainly because the other options are the Barnacle, Dante Johnson, and they may say, hey, you know what? We would prefer his veteran savvy out there than a rookie. Because whoever it is, they're going to get picked on, because now Ward, right? Ward and Mosley were playing really well together, which meant you got to pick your poison, and teams are doing that, right? They were throwing against Ward. That's why he leads the league in pass breakups, because Mosley was straps on the other side as well. So now that you've got a hole there, I imagine teams are going to try and pick on that side of the ball. So who do you want there? Do you want a veteran who may not have, again, the physical skill set of your young rookie cornerback, but he has the veteran savvy to stick out there and probably not get terribly exposed? Or do you go with the kid that, you know, showed a lot of promise in college, has the athleticism to be out there, but if he gets picked on, right, and gives up a big play or gives up a bunch of yardage, maybe a touchdown or two, does that kill his confidence? And maybe that was part of the issue last year with Lenoir. Maybe that play really destroyed his confidence. And so the other option is Avery Thomas, who many thought, hey, you know, it could be Ward, Thomas on the outside, and Mosley on the inside going into this season, just because of the way that Avery Thomas finished the 2021 campaign, especially with that game-sealing interception in Week 18 against the Rams. I don't know. Have you seen Avery Thomas's picture on a milk carton? Because I haven't seen him this season at all. I don't even know that I've seen him on the sidelines. Like, he has just disappeared. So I'm not sure that's one of the options. But if it were you, if you were D'Amico Ryans, I mean, what do you think you would do?
I mean, it has to be Womack, because you're not going to move Lenore out of the slot. He's been so successful there. You don't want to mess with that, right? And I think that if you're bringing somebody, and Womack has been playing, like, he'll play special teams, and he'll eventually get in and reps with the defense, with the regular base defense. But I feel more comfortable with a guy like Sam Womack, who's already been playing, rather than like getting in Avery Thomas, who I don't think has even been active for all of the games, and or Dante Johnson, who is kind of like a wild card at this point in his career. Like, he's the barnacle, right? Like, he's not spectacular. He may turn in a good game for you here and there, but you need a permanent sort of solution. Not permanent, but for the rest of the season sort of solution. So
yeah,
whether it's biding your time until Jason Verrett's ready, and even I want to remind everybody, even when Jason Verrett is healthy, he's not going to come back full speed. Like, he's not coming back for the entire duration of the game for the defense, right? Like, they're going to ease him back in. He'll be on a pitch count, especially coming off of a major knee injury. Like, you're not gonna have him go, full bore the entire time. So there is going to be a little bit of platoon work there. Now the question to me is, like, who do you platoon him with? And to me, I'm most comfortable with Sam Womack. Like you said, he played there in college. He's a natural outside corner. He's got speed to keep up with some of the speedier receivers, and that he's going to get picked on. Now, when talking in the context of this week, Marcus Mariota has been totally mediocre so far this year, right? Like, he has 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Like, he has a passer rating of 78. He's throwing for less than 200 yards a game, completing less than 60% of his passes. So he has not been good. Like, they have not been getting Kyle Pitts the ball. Kyle Pitts only has 10 catches for 150 yards so far this season. So their biggest threat is Drake London right now, who has 22 catches. So I think that in that sense, you almost make Mariota beat you, which means that you're going to get action for those corners. If they can sell out to stop the run, that's how Atlanta's been winning, right? The 2 games that they won, they've run the ball really well. And, you can argue against Tampa Bay, they probably should have won too if they didn't get a phantom roughing the passer call,
oh my goodness,
which is one of the worst calls I've ever seen in my life.
Wow. Yeah.
So I think that when it comes to this week, they're going to have to make Marcus Mariota beat them. And I think they're comfortable with that because he has not been good this year. The only reservation that I have is if you ask like a rookie corner like Sam Womack to cover for more than 4 seconds, is he going to be able to cover? Because your pass rush is not going to be able to be what it's like when you have Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead on that field at the same time.
No doubt. The pass rush obviously will not be the same, especially if Bosa's not on the field. The one thing, though, that the 49ers have that is probably the envy of most of the rest of the teams in the NFL is just absolutely insane depth along that defensive line. Somebody tweeted out, I think it was yesterday, the starting defensive line for practice was Charles Omenihu and Kerry Hyder on the outside, and then Kevin Givens and Hassan Ridgeway on the inside. And I tweeted out that is the starting defensive line for a lot of teams in the NFL, right? And that is backups to backups for the 49ers, which is impressive. But, we were talking off air briefly before we went live. People, let's put to rest this idea that Jason Verrett this week is going to possibly be the guy that mans it outside. You made a great point, Zane. This game is on turf. I don't think they're going to allow Jason Verrett to even suit up this week. Why? Mm-hmm. Why put somebody who's recovering from a torn ACL that he suffered on turf to now play on turf, right? Their next 3 games, I think we said earlier, they're home against the Chiefs next week. They are on the road against the Rams the following week. Then there is a bye, and then they are home against the Chargers. I think if Jason Verrett sees any action at all, I think you're probably looking at that Chargers game as really the first. I don't think, his practice window is open, and they're going to have to make a decision on him before that Chargers game. I believe the decision they have to make will be after. It's a 21-day window, right?
Correct.
And they started that window last Monday, I believe. So they have
just over a
until
week.
they have until it was at the Monday of the bye week, right, to make a decision.
Correct.
So
Mhm.
I think at that point they'll make that decision. I would assume it will be that they will activate him. I haven't heard anything about any hiccups for him, which is nice. But I don't think, again, we're not looking at any field time for him until at least that Chargers game. So it really is the three options of Johnson, Womack, and Lenore, or not Lenore, and Thomas. And like you, I do think Womack is going to get the first shot. But like you said, this Atlanta, and why not give him a shot? Because this Atlanta pass offense is not good. It's not really very good at all. Atlanta's rush DVOA, they are second in the league, only behind Cleveland, but their passing DVOA is 18th, which tells you that, again, they are elite at running the ball, and they are less than average at passing the ball. And a lot of that has to do with the guy that lines up under center, Marcus Mariota. But I do think even if Bosa is out, I just have a lot of faith in this line to still get a significant amount of pressure. Do I think it will be at the same level? Probably not, right? Nick Bosa was, he was as of 2 weeks ago, I believe his pass rush win rate was hovering around 25%, or his pressure rate was 25%, which meant that 1 out of every 4 rushes, he's pressuring the quarterback. You're going to miss that no matter what. And my hope is, with the gauntlet that is coming up for this team, right? Home to the Chiefs, at the Rams, home to the Chargers. They really need Nick Bosa in those games. And so it would make no sense to me to see him see the field at all against Atlanta. I think they still have enough with Ebukam, with Drake Jackson, with Kamiko Torre, with Kerry Hyder, with Charles Amenahu. Like, they still have a murderer's row of edge talent that can step in and step up against this team. And you may even see more of big ends on each side, because they're less worried about pass rush and more worried about stopping the run. So you may see more Charles Amenahu, Kerry Hyder combos, or Charles Amenahu and Drake Jackson combos, right? Bigger guys on the ends. Although Drake Jackson is an athletic freak. That guy is 270 pounds, and he does full layouts, and I think he can do a standing backflip. Like, the dude is oozing athleticism. But he is still a bigger guy. And so if you've got those two on the end, along with Ridgeway and Givens inside, I think they have a good shot of stopping the run against Atlanta. And again, if Atlanta is forced to pass, I think they can still get a good amount of pressure. But I think you're right. I think D'Amico will dial up some stuff that we probably haven't seen before, just to get the kind of pressure that you're used to seeing, so that you can help a secondary that is no longer at full health with Mosley down now.
And can we talk about how good of a signing Hassan Ridgeway has been, or how good of a pickup that's been? He's been fantastic. Like, it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but he's been eating up blocks. He's been eating up double teams. He's been able to free up some of the other guys behind him. Like, the plays that Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw have been able to make, and Hufanga to some extent as well, is because there's blockers tied up on the offensive line. And Hassan Ridgeway in particular, stepping in for Javon Kinlaw, who's injured again. I mean, he's done an amazing job. And I think that's one of the more underrated signings that they've had this year. Obviously, the most underrated being Mooney and how he's performed. He leads the league in pass breakups. You mentioned that before. And I think that teams will start going away from him, because why would you keep testing that when you have most likely a rookie on the other side? So we'll see, man. We'll see. Like, Womack is going to be tested, and
whoever's over there.
Or whoever's over there are going to be tested, whether it's Womack, Avery Thomas, Dante Johnson, they'll be tested. So they don't throw the ball well, right? They've been running the ball well, but they're, in terms of passing yards, they're 30th in the league in passing yards. And the other flip side of that is that they also don't defend the pass very well either. They're 29th in pass defense. So I think that flipping this over to the other side, actually, one more thing about the defense. The Kinlaw thing reminded me of something. So I put out a stat earlier today on Twitter that said that Javon Kinlaw in his career has played in 21 games. He so far in his career has missed 17 games, right? If you do the math, that's 17 games it's missed. And your first round pick missing as many games as he's played is a huge. I mean, I feel bad because, injuries happen to guys and you can't control that. But I think that, comment Derek Brown. I mean, I would love if Derek Brown would be a Niner. I think that's a real underrated signing if they could pick him up. And if they have the.
I would say shout out to Peter Lucas. Peter, how's it going, buddy?
Yeah, so I think that's an issue that they're going to sort out. He's got a 5th-year option coming up that they're going to either pick up or not after next season. So what do you do with that? Because you don't know what you have in Javon Kinlaw. When he's played, you've seen him make strides. Like the beginning of the season, he was playing very, very well. The game before he got hurt, I felt like was his best game ever as a pro. He was constantly in the backfield. That Bears game in the first game of the season, he was very, very disruptive to Justin Fields. And it just hurts when your number 1 D tackle, who you're counting on, cannot stay healthy. So I think that Hassan Ridgeway pickup is that much more important in that sense. So
100%. Yeah. And it's interesting because what Ridgeway is this year is what I think they wanted out of, and I'm blanking on the guy's name. They signed him last year. He was with the Panthers. No, Mo Hurst was going to be great. And he's just, again, had freak injuries. No, he didn't even make it out of camp. But like I said, he was on the Panthers. I can't remember his name. A D tackle they signed to essentially do what it is that Ridgeway is doing now, which is just be a run stuffer, right? Just clog the lanes, take up more than one blocker, right? Do all the gritty, dirty things that nobody notices or nobody cares about, but are tantamount to your defensive line and your linebackers playing the way that, that they do. And so, Ridgeway has been Zach Kerr. Thank you, Zach Kerr. Thank you. Yes.
He was number 2. And he was the second highest rated player on their defense via PFF that year, the year before the Niners signed him.
Right. With the Panthers. When he came here. Yeah. Didn't even make the team out of camp. Mm-hmm. Somebody said feeling on Armstead, maybe heading to the IR. I believe they already did place Eric Armstead on the IR. And so this will be the 2nd week of his IR stint. And so he won't be eligible to be back until that game against the Chargers. And I imagine he will. Armstead's issue is plantar fasciitis, which I am a Sac area native. I still live in the Sacramento area. There is a store here called the Good Feet store. And at one point they had Peja Stojakovic as a spokesperson. And all I can remember from those commercials is the way that Peja Stojakovic said plantar fasciitis was like plantar fasciitis. It was like, maybe not have Peja as the guy saying that, but anyway, and that's an injury that you just really he's just going to have to manage. And, unlike Kinlaw prior to this year, Armstead has been an Iron Man for this team. Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing that is so difficult about the Kinlaw situation, it's twofold for me. One, the gentleman that asked about Armstead said he's had plantar fasciitis in both feet and paid a lot of money to the Good Feet store, and it worked. Hey, good feet, good feet. 49ers Web Zone No Huddle Podcast. Let's go. The great David Bonilla told us that Armstead is not on the IR. Okay, so
when the boss comes and tells you, then that means that's true, right? Okay. Whether it's true or not, the boss comes in and. All right.
That's right. But excuse me. The thing that's, as a fan, right, when it comes to Kinlaw, it's twofold for me. One, you see the potential, right? And like you talked about, he was so disruptive in the Bears game, and then also in that Broncos game, he was collapsing the pocket, right? He's so disruptive and he's so talented. And he just cannot stay on the field. And the other thing, the flip side of that, is they got rid of a guy who does stay on the field and was productive when he was on the field in DeForest Buckner, right? And it's hard not to look at it and go, they chose Kinlaw over Buckner. It's more complicated than that. I understand that, right? Because it was essentially a choice between Buckner or Armstead and Ward, right? What they signed Armstead and Jimmy Ward for is what it would have cost to sign Buckner. And so they made a financial decision. I get it. Like, I understand that. I don't necessarily fault them for it, because Jimmy Ward has been excellent and Eric Armstead has been great. I think Eric Armstead absolutely has lived up to that contract. But it's hard not to think that Kinlaw is a direct replacement of DeForest Buckner, an Iron Man at the D tackle position, and Kinlaw cannot stay on the field. And so, like you said, his 5th-year option, they're going to have to make that decision after this season. And I don't know. I don't know that they will. I don't think that they should. It doesn't mean that he can't. Jimmy Ward had a reputation for being injury prone and whatnot. And before this season, right, he had gone, I think, three straight seasons without a significant injury. But I just remember he's had such bad luck with broken bones. And again, he broke another hand. It's like, what is going on? Like, he has a broken arm one time, like just a weird, just freak injuries for that guy. But yeah, I think you're right. Ridgeway has been a huge underrated signing. I don't think there's been a free agent signing that the 49ers had this offseason that hasn't paid huge dividends so far this season. They've had a great offseason, including the decision that really angered me, which was bringing back Jimmy Garoppolo. Looks like a stroke of genius now, right? So great job for the front office. And now the question becomes, does all this depth that they've put together, can it amount to wins? And we're going to see starting this week. So we talked about the defensive side of the ball. Let's look at the offensive side.
Also, to your point, actually, before we move on,
go ahead.
You're talking about DeForest Buckner, right? So I have his stats up here in terms of games played. So games played: 2016 as a rookie, 15; 2017, 16; 18, 16; 19, 16; 2020, his first year in Indy, played 15 games. 2021, last year, played all 17 games. 2022, this year, has played all 5 games. So he has missed
2 games.
2 games in his entire career. So I get it. I totally understand, because the best ability is availability, right? In sports. So, and when you're a young player, Kinlaw was very much like a raw sort of prospect as well when they drafted him. And there was it was one of those like high ceiling, low floor sorts of picks when they drafted him. And they knew that he had knee issues, but they're hoping he can overcome them. He has not been able to overcome them. And it's almost similar to a Trey Lance situation where when you're a young player that's raw, you need reps. And if you can't stay on the field for those reps, it is going to hinder your game and your development. And in the NFL, where literally it's next man up, I hate to be cliche, it's next man up, you have a situation where Hassan Ridgeway stepped up in Javon Kinlaw's absence for a fraction of what Javon Kinlaw would get paid long term, and being able to give you similar production out of that role, or like a Mo Hurst last year, right? Something like that, where you got guys that are reliable that cost a fraction of the money that it does to sign a first round pick. It's a very, very kind of precarious situation then if you are Javon Kinlaw. So I'm not saying he should be cut. I'm not saying he's a bust. All I'm saying is that I hope that he can get better so he can see the field, so that he can develop, because this defense, when Javon Kinlaw is playing at his peak, is better. Exactly. Yeah. It is much better. So we'll see about that. So anyways, you're talking about offense.
Yeah. I would say, and to your point, to end that, Kevin Givens, undrafted free agent, right? So
yes,
again, and Kevin Givens has been great. So
Chris Kroschek, man, he's done an amazing job. Remember Arden Key? Arden Key had a fantastic year, and he banked off of that, and he's just been able to do wonders with that defensive line. So it's almost like Kyle is with running backs. Like that's how the defensive line is, right? And I think that DJ cashed in, right? I don't blame him for that.
Yeah,
he was.
I agree. We have a comment that said, "Wish we could have kept DJ." I couldn't agree more. Wish we could have as well, but DJ earned his bag and is playing really well in Denver. So kudos to DJ. Love that guy. Love DJ Jones. But one thing that they did do this season, right? Their 6th round pick, which nobody talks about because he was injured when they drafted him. Kalia Davis out of, I believe it's UCF, I think is where he went. They drafted him in the 6th round this year. very much a DJ Jones clone in terms of size, motor, all of that. And he's just kind of chilling, rehabbing from a knee injury that he got at the end of his college career. I'll be excited to see what he looks like coming into next season. But defense, which is fun to talk about because the 49ers have the best defense in the NFL, period, right? I don't think there's any argument. I don't think you can get any argument from anybody. I think the only other team that could stake claim to that is the Bills. And it'll be interesting to see the Bills play the Chiefs this week, and then the Chiefs play the 49ers next week. So the Chiefs have quite the tall task ahead of them. But let's look at the offensive side of the ball. Like you said, Zane, the Falcons defense, the Falcons have been a surprising team to me. They haven't stacked a ton of wins. They are what? They are
2-3.
2-3.
Yeah.
With the victories coming against the Seahawks and the Lions, I believe, or the Browns. That's right. And so they've been surprising because their offense has been decent. They actually have the 10th ranked offense by DVOA, which is higher than the 49ers, but their defense hasn't been great. And that's kind of similar to the Lions, right? Not to the same extent, where the Lions are like, we're just not going to play defense and just only focus on offense. But as again, Peter says on a comment here, they're all run, no pass. And that's 100% right. The Falcons offense is all run, no pass, but the Falcons defense has been decent against the run, not against the pass. They have AJ Terrell, who I think is a superstar at the corner position. But if there's one thing we know about Kyle Shanahan, it's his ability to scheme away from a singular stellar coverage player, right? Jalen Ramsey does very little against the 49ers because Kyle Shanahan knows how to scheme around that. So to me, I think we're going to see a game plan probably fairly similar to what we saw against the Panthers, but even more than that, against the Rams, right? Against the Rams, the 49ers came out and threw the ball a lot. I did not expect that. And I think that's what we're going to see here against Atlanta. And here's my thing. I think the key to this game is to get up early, right? We talked last episode about the 49ers lack of scoring in the first half, right? Against the Panthers, in a game that they won 37-15, the offense scored 10 points in the first half. Right? The team scored 17 because of Mosley's pick 6, but the offense scored 10 points. I need the offense to come out and put up points on the board. I would love to see them in the first half put up 14, 17, 20 points in the first half. I think if they can do that and you force Atlanta to pass, to catch up, you're cooking with gas at that point. So, I think Kyle Shanahan will look to exploit the Atlanta pass defense. And the thing about Atlanta is they don't have a ton of pass rush. Their best pass rusher is Grady Jarrett, who is their D tackle, and he's great. He's incredible. If you remember that game against the Falcons in 2019, Grady Jarrett on the defensive side of the ball really took that game over. And then Julio Jones on the offensive side took that game over. And really it was those two players, you could argue, that spurred that victory for the Falcons against the 49ers in 2019. Grady Jarrett, if you can figure out a way to keep Grady Jarrett from collapsing the pocket from the inside, and whether that be double teams, whether that be getting, moving the pocket, right? Just kind of getting away from that interior pressure. They don't have a whole lot on the edges. So I don't think it's going to be a tough game for the tackles, right? For McGlinchey or for Jalen Moore, who acquitted himself pretty nicely against Carolina a couple times. There were times he got beat, but that's to be expected. Brian Burns is awesome. But I think if they can come out and they can throw the ball on Atlanta and get up early, I think that is the recipe for victory.
Yeah, and I think that, so one thing that I do want to caution people with is that Well, first of all, I don't think that this is going to be as easy as the Carolina game. I think this will be a measurable sort of level harder than the Carolina game was. More so because of, I think that Atlanta's a better quality opponent, and I also think that the injury specifically along the defensive line, which we've already touched on, that's going to make a difference. But let me throw some stats at you right now. So their defense in the 5 games this year, they have allowed 200 passing yards. They have allowed 234 to Jameis Winston, 272 to Matt Stafford, 308 to Geno Smith, 226 to Jacoby Brissett in the Cleveland Browns, and then 351 to Tom Brady. So they're getting gashed through the air. And I think, to your point, you're going to see something similar where they are throwing often and they're using those short little bubble screens and short little quick hitters as a running game to be able to get that yardage on the outside. And one sort of caution that I do have as well is that, Jimmy tends to struggle with pressure up the middle, right? Like that was the issue during the Super Bowl that they lost, is that there was pressure up the middle and he couldn't. And to that point, that was the issue in January against the Rams. Like there was pressure coming up the middle, and the Niners their offensive line was losing those battles, and he couldn't throw. Like he just couldn't find anybody open. You have time. So that is the one caution I have with Grady Jarrett in the middle. And I hope that they can kind of mitigate that by getting the ball out of Jimmy's hands. And I think you'll see a similar game plan to what we've seen the last kind of couple of weeks. And mind you, the Falcons have only lost their 3 games by a total of 1.4 points, and the 6 points, 11 points, right? Like they've lost the 3 games by 11 points total. So they're in every game that they play. But I think that the quality of opponent that they've played is something different than what they're seeing this week, right? With the exception of maybe Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, but they're just not right. They don't look right. Their offense is not really firing. So with all due respect to the 5 teams that they played, I feel like the Niners are by far the best team that they've seen on their schedule. So in a lot of ways for them, it's a measuring stick game as well, right? But the way that the Niners are going to win this game, to me, is going to be to throw the ball. I think that the Falcons will gear up to stop the run. They don't have a ton of playmakers on defense. Remember AJ Terrell just got obliterated by Debo last year when they played here? Do you remember that play? Debo took an inside handoff and basically, was it a handoff or was it a short throw? I don't remember, but it was near the goal line and just went like helmet to helmet. Terrell
ran through his face.
Yeah. So that is my enduring image of AJ Terrell right now, right? So, but really, they're going to have to take care of the ball, and I think that if they can do that, if Jimmy plays a clean game, they will win, right? I can almost guarantee that. If he plays a clean game like he did in Carolina, very similar to how he did against the Rams for the most part, I think that they will be able to win handily. Will they be able to do that? We'll see, because every week you don't know what Jimmy you're getting, right? Are you getting, efficient and accurate Jimmy, or are you going to get like the, oh my God throws? So we've talked about his interception percentage, just down below 1%, right? It's his career best so far. It's a small sample size. It's 5 games, but it's the same sample size that we had when he first started in those 5 games, right? When he didn't know the offense. Yeah. So if you want to look at it that way, and we look at that 5 games when he first started as kind of like the standard of like, 2017 Jimmy, right? That's what we want. I feel like this is probably, in terms of taking care of the ball, the best that he's ever played in terms of the small stretch of games.
For sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, he has, his career interception percentage is, I think, close to 3%, which is not great in terms of a starting quarterback in the NFL. And like I said, his touchdown to interception ratio prior to the season was 1.6 to 1, which again is not where you want to be in terms of, if you're going to throw interceptions, fine. Like Matthew Stafford, right? Matthew Stafford is going to throw interceptions, but Matthew Stafford also threw for 41 touchdowns last year, right? So if you can make up for the interceptions with passing touchdowns, then great. Now, granted, they play in a completely different offense, right? Sean McVay has no problem opening it up and throwing the ball, because it seems like he has forgotten how to coach a run game, right? Because they haven't had a run game in LA since Todd Gurley was healthy and good, which has been a minute. So, and the 49ers don't run a pass happy offense. They run a run first offense, which is why, like, I've seen on the timeline this week. Like the 49, I'd like to see the 49ers make a play for OBJ. Oh, it was Pro Football Talk, right? So Mike Florio, who, Mike Florio is Mike Florio when it comes to the 49ers. But, and I was like, how does this make any sense, right? The 49ers are a run first offense, and they already have playmakers like George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and then to a smaller extent, Juwan Jennings, Ray McLeod, and Danny Gray. They already have a hard enough time getting the ball to their playmakers in the passing offense already. Now you're going to add OBJ to that. And what is that going to do, right? That doesn't help this offense. This offense isn't hurting for playmakers. This offense is simply hurting for better execution, and it's starting to come. And I think we would do well as a fan base and as content creators and anybody who follows this team to go into every season and think to yourself, our offense is not going to look great for the first 4 to 6 weeks, right? As they work out the kinks, especially because they just don't do it in the preseason. Like Kyle Shanahan's like, I'm not showing anything. I'm not showing any of my cards in the preseason. I'm not going to do right. So they take these first 4 weeks, lean on their defense, start to get right. And then they start to take off. And so, you look at this team and where they are, right? They scored 10 points against the Bears. They scored 27 against the Seahawks, 11 against the Broncos, and then 24 and 37, right? So they are starting to pick up a little bit of steam, right? And Jimmy is starting to find a rhythm. The offensive line is starting to find a little bit more of a rhythm. They still don't have Trent Williams, right? Which means that maybe this offense isn't going to click on all cylinders just yet until they get that line exactly where they want it, with Trent Williams on the left side, McGlinchey on the right. Banks has still done a great job at left guard. I think that's his spot. And then they continue to kind of work Brunskill in back and forth with Burford. I think, they're trying to figure that stuff out. So it'll be interesting to see if Burford gets the start or if Brunskill does, especially against a vet like Grady Jarrett. Because I think, again, like you said, that is the matchup that we need to look for, is Grady Jarrett against the interior offensive line of the 49ers. What are they going to do to keep him from wrecking the game? Because single-handedly he can. We've seen it. We saw it in 2019. We even saw it. I mean, he's the one that got the most egregious poor pass or quarterback, what was it? Roughing the passer penalty. That was Grady Jarrett, right? Who was making his presence known at the end of that game. That's what he does. So you've got to figure out a way to make sure that he doesn't. And again, I think the key is to get out early and score early. And so that is my hope for this offense, that we see them put up, hey, let's do 14 points, right? Let's do 2 touchdowns in the first half. Right. Or I would love to see, like I said, 17 to 20. I do think that they will score in the 20s in this game. I would love to see the majority of that come in the first half, so that, like I said, they can really force the Atlanta offense to have to pass to catch up, at which point they've played right into your hands, right? As a defense, because your pass defense is elite. But here's the other thing. The 49ers run defense is elite right now. They are allowing 3 yards a carry, and they are first in rush DVOA on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm actually really interested to see what that looks like, especially with the defensive line ailing a little bit, because the reason, at least in my opinion, that they are where they are is because of Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. Greenlaw leads the league in tackles. I think I said this last episode. Warner and Greenlaw are the 3rd and 4th ranked linebackers from PFF right now, right? So, and then not only that, but their corners. And now again, Mosley is out. Their corners tackle really well. Charvarius Ward hasn't missed a tackle yet this season. Talanoa Hufanga is a tackling machine, right? And so that rush defense, a lot of it has to do with their linebackers and their secondary being able to tackle as well. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like as they go against arguably their biggest test when it comes to running the football is this Falcons team, who has a distinct commitment to running the ball. And I'll be interested to see if they can, if they can stop it.
Yeah. So also a quick stat before we give our predictions for the game and get out of here. Jeff Wilson Jr. is the only player in the NFL, or the first player in the NFL this year to have 30-yard runs in 3 consecutive weeks out of any running back in the NFL. So first player to accomplish that this season. Obviously, there's going to be more, but that's super encouraging through 5 weeks. 3 weeks, he's had a run of 3 yards or more. So that's one thing to watch. So predictions. I guess I'll go first. So I think that, like you said, they'll be in the 20s. I think that the Niners will be able to score on them and pass the ball on them. It, again, really depends on if they can hang on to the ball and not have silly turnovers. Like the Kittle turnover was just so silly last week, and it kind of killed a good drive. And I think that, and you're not going to get that from him. It's only his second career fumble, right? So you're just not going to see that from a guy like Kittle. So I'm not really worried about that. But that being said, I think that the Niners should be able to win this game. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than the Panthers game was. Like that game was really never in doubt, aside from that when the missed field goal happened and they immediately had the pick 6 from E-Man. So I think that this game will be a little bit closer. And I'm going to say the Niners will, they'll win. I'll say 27-17.
All right. I also think that they're going to win this game. The one thing that I am worried about, this does smell a little bit like a trap game, right? As you look ahead to the schedule and you go Chiefs, Rams, Chargers, right? Those are 3 big games. And so just like in 2019, this smells and feels a little bit like a trap game, but I think part of why they like to stay on the East Coast is it keeps them locked in. And so I think they are locked in right now. I don't think they're looking ahead at all. And again, this Atlanta team is plucky, but they've got very little in the way of a solid passing offense. And so they scored 15 against the Bucs. I think the 49ers defense is better than the Bucs defense, even with some of these injuries. And so I'm going to say that the 49ers win this game handily. 27-13 is my prediction.
Awesome. All
right.
Well,
but go ahead.
I was going to say, well, I mean, I think that at least I'm sure I'll speak for Al when he says that they think they're going to win too. So I'll give Al's prediction as well.
Yes.
I won't give a score. I'm just going to say that. Al's going to say they're going to win too.
I'm confident in that as well.
Yeah. Anything else before we get out of here, man?
No, we'll be back either Sunday night or Monday to recap this game. And hopefully Al will be with us then. Zain, any more celebrations for the birthday planned for this weekend?
Just going to eat cake. Like it's
and
birthday
steak.
week, so calories don't count. And steak. Cake and steak. There we go.
It's a cake and steak weekend for Zain.
It is.
I love it. All right. Well, for Zain Nakvi, I am Brian Rennick. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you later.